Hello, everyone. You might know me as Ruby Moon, but I want to talk specifically about something that is a personal interest of mine. Because I am someone with ADHD, have known about ADHD for a good while, but have been recently also diagnosed with autism and general anxiety disorder. And I wanted to take this time to talk about what is it like to be neurodivergent and to live with ADHD and really talk about the ups and downs and everything, because I feel like more often than not ADHD is one of the most downplayed disorders and disabilities, often being discredited as a real disorder, often not treated as seriously and to the same regard as other disorders, and often puts people into a misunderstanding of what the disorder actually is and why it is still a disability, no matter how easy it is to work with, because the reality is it's not easy to work with at all. Now, I want to say specifically, I am not a trained professional person with a PhD or license to psychology or anything like that. I am strictly talking about my experience with myself and my perspective that may be biased and may be skewed towards in favor of people with ADHD, people with neurodivergent disorders, and so on and so forth. But I will also say I have hands-on experience and first-person experience of observing these types of disorders in the classroom, in private settings, in daycares, in I'm an educator. I've worked with kids. I've seen it plenty of times, not just with myself, but also classmates and students. I want to make it clear that I am not diagnosing, and I may misunderstand some of the aspects of ADHD, as I do have multiple disorders, but I also want to clarify and confirm generally some misunderstandings about ADHD, and even offer to people with ADHD more of an understanding of what your disorder actually is. Because I feel like there's a lot where it's like we know the general idea of ADHD, and unfortunately people with ADHD have the tendency not to think to do some research about ADHD, because their disorder kind of doesn't allow them to think that far, and maybe later in life you will find out that something that you were doing as a child growing up wasn't something that you could have actually controlled and was in fact part of the ADHD umbrella. So the first thing is personal experience. I've been someone that has dealt with a lot of discrimination, a lot of misnomers, and a lot of my disorder doesn't feel like it's being taken as seriously as someone with maybe a different disorder. And I do understand that ADHD is a very easy misconception with other types of behavior. Oftentimes, ADHD isn't taken as seriously and isn't recognized as early as someone with like autism, as someone with like any of the other disorders like Down syndrome, like Tourette's. Like a lot of those are much easier to spot. Not saying that it's easy to diagnose, but it's easier to spot because it stands out maybe more than your typical person with ADHD. The biggest thing is that when it comes to ADHD, a lot of symptoms are either downplayed or they are not seen as real symptoms, so they don't, or people just don't know that it is a symptom, because they have an idea of what ADHD is, but they don't really know what ADHD is. Like they have the idea, oh, if someone is crazy, out of control, like not paying attention and yada yada yada, a lot of that does fall under ADHD. But there's also the idea of sometimes people don't have ADHD, they might have something else, but people will think that it's ADHD and not take it seriously. Like, there are many people with Tourette's that first get diagnosed with ADHD and then learn that they actually have Tourette's, and so on and so forth. Because a lot of the disorders are very similar to the point that they can be diagnosed incorrectly. Or someone can have multiple disorders, as often ADHD people do have multiple disorders. Same thing with dyslexia, same thing with a lot. They often do pair together. But sometimes it is harder to detect because a therapist or a psychiatrist is looking at ADHD and not the other disorders, because they assume that the diagnosis is correct, or they see a symptom and they assume that it's because of ADHD. Now, I've been to therapy, I've talked to psychiatrists, and from their perspective, from what I remember, they were explaining that a lot of the symptoms that I was experiencing was in fact related to ADHD. So I didn't seek further diagnosis because it was explained to me that it's ADHD. Then when I went to do the full diagnosis, because one of my new psychiatrists recommended it, because it was for medication purposes and to make sure that there wasn't anything else, because I did talk a lot about how I had feelings that there was something else, like I don't know, like and sometimes like the symptoms that I was describing sometimes do pair with ADHD, and is not necessarily indicative of another disorder, but can be, but is often kind of brushed under the ADHD umbrella. So it turns out that after getting full diagnosis, that I do have ADHD, obviously, but I also have like high functioning autism and general anxiety disorder. Now, it's kind of funny because a lot of the times they kind of manifest themselves. Like, autism and ADHD are a very common pair with each other. Because in a sense, autism, in a way, from my understanding, can cause ADHD, and ADHD can cause autism. Like, they're very similar. There's many people in the world with autism and ADHD combined. Sometimes you just have ADHD, sometimes you just have autism, but a lot of the time ADHD is indicative of another disorder of some type. Not only that, but I think with general anxiety disorder, it kind of comes with, it's like a package deal. Like, if you have autism, if you have ADHD, you probably also have general anxiety disorder, because you grow up with so many dismissals, and you learn to put up your walls because people don't take you seriously, and you get hurt a lot more because people don't take you as seriously, or they chalk it up to ADHD or something else. Now, as a woman, I've been told that sometimes my ADHD is because I am having that time of the month. Because, like, it must be, like, Shark Week coming up, like, it's just hormones. I've heard so many things under the bus. I've heard, that I can be loud, have tone. I have, like, moments where, I am on my best days. And I have moments where my ADHD kind of shows up a little bit more. And I think that's the biggest thing, is oftentimes people with ADHD are on medication that do help them kind of work through their symptoms. But it's not like a magic pill. You can't just make ADHD go away. And even when you're on the medication, it doesn't mean that you won't have symptoms. Because it's not an off switch. It's not like an on and off switch where you can just be like, boom, your ADHD is turned off, so you no longer have ADHD symptoms. Because everybody kind of has something to do with ADHD. If I broke down the DSM, 5 of ADHD, you probably be like, oh yeah, I've experienced that before. But the difference between ADHD and someone who is just hyperactive at a period or impulsive or whatever is that ADHD people can't turn it off. People without ADHD can turn it off on most instances, but people with ADHD don't know how to turn it off. That's part of the ADHD. So someone can have ADHD-like behaviors, but at some point they will have an off button. But for people with ADHD, we can't find that switch. Like, even with things like Ritalin, Concerta, Strattera, the common ones, even like with like Adderall, they're not cures. They're not magic pills, and sometimes the side effects can be worse than the ADHD symptoms, because the way that these pills work, for the most part, as far as I'm aware, is that they are basically attempts to regulate your thought process in your brain. It's like an impulse control. But because these medications kind of mess with your brain, especially if you are someone who struggles with something else or has multiple medications, potentially multiple ADHD medications, or a medication to that does something else, or you have too many things that kind of work with your brain, it can do magical things. It can do very, very magical things, to the point where people don't really know, doctors don't really know what side effects you're going to have if you are on certain medications. And people with ADHD don't know to report it to their psychiatrist, and don't know that, hey, maybe this thing should be brought up so my psychiatrist knows that this is what I'm dealing. Like, because we're always told we're better with the medication, we're like, okay, I must take my medication, and this other stuff that I'm dealing with because of the medication is kind of worth suffering through, because I'm better behaved on the medication, and I don't want to cause anything. I don't want to make anything worse. And the thing is, people are not forgiving about symptoms of ADHD the way they are sometimes forgiving of other types of like disorders. And I think it's because a lot of people don't understand what they're seeing, the things that they're complaining about, is part of ADHD. For example, if you have ever been told that you're using tone or you're shouting, and you've been like, I don't know what you're talking about, I'm speaking normally, it is because people with ADHD can't hear the difference in tone. What is loud for you is 10 times louder for the person hearing you. It's kind of like if I were to put on noise canceling headphones and I were to talk, I would probably be shouting because I don't hear how loud I'm speaking. Additionally, this can cause problems because when you're in an argument, the first person who is likely to cause that argument to escalate is probably the person with ADHD, because number one, they don't have an impulse control. Number two, they don't understand that what they are saying and how they're saying it is perceived as argumentative, and they think that they are being polite. They don't understand that what they're saying can be perceived incorrectly. Like, in their head, they're like, yeah, this sounds like the right thing to say in the moment, But no one is there being like, hey, this is an ADHD moment. And further than that, it's very difficult when we believe that we are experiencing the truth and telling the truth and telling how we feel and expressing how we truly believe, and people just chalk it up to, oh, you're just having a moment, or oh, you're just PMSing, or oh, you need to check your attitude. Because even when there is moments where we might escalate something further than it needs to be, we still might be correct. Like, there are so many times where I am right and I am being told that I'm overreacting or I'm overanalyzing or whatever, but I'm still right because, like, I was right. And it gets to a point where it's very frustrating. Like, it's very frustrating because I can't seem to do anything right. If I let people walk all over me, then I get hurt. And if I don't let people walk all over me, then I'm being told that I'm the problem. And I know a lot of people with ADHD are like nodding along in their heads, because they're realizing that, yes, there's a lot of those moments where what I am saying is truthful and what I am saying has validation, but people are ignoring me because they believe it's ADHD. Now, it's important to remember that ADHD is an impulse control thing. It's the lack of impulse control. Meaning, what I'm thinking inside my head is probably driving me so crazy that I have to say it, but I know that saying it is probably going to cause a confrontation. So what a lot of us do is we keep it inside, because we've been taught that when we speak, we cause arguments, we cause problems. And so we keep it inside of us, and we let this person or whoever talk to us the way that they talk to us, and we keep it going until our brain is like, you have to say something. And then we do, and now everybody's mad at us because we have the audacity to say something. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't keep a secret. I am very good at keeping secrets. But I also have a moral ground. And there is a line of which I will at some point say something, because everything in my body is telling me this is not right. And because I have that impulse control problem, it's like a constant woodpecker pecking at your brain being like, hey, you need to say something. Hey, you need to say something. And in part, it is our brain trying to protect us because it's so used to being hurt, shut down, and being like, you need to make sure that you're not being hurt by this. And so then we say something. And we might not say it in the exact words that a normal person would say it. Oftentimes, people with ADHD have trouble expressing themselves in a manner that is clear to the other person perceiving it. Like, we think that we are saying exactly what we mean, but this other person is being like, oh, actually, like, you are like being like too much, or like our message is lost because people are focused on the words that we mean. And if we're someone with autism, like autism and ADHD put together, then it makes it kind of worse because we don't understand what is being not understood. We are trying to resolve the situation without causing a fight because we understand that that can happen with our ADHD. And we're feeling frustrated because our point is still right. We're just not saying it in the right way. And yes, obviously, sometimes we can be wrong. Obviously. But it's so frustrating that we believe that when we are right, we are being ignored, silenced, and shut down. And then our opinion is later validated by someone's confirmation. 5 years down the line, 1 year down the line, we are validated because we were right. But we can't have that justification or that we can't have that resolved because we were told that we were too much of a problem. Like, we are often told, oh, you're over exaggerating, you're overthinking it, you're like, etc., etc. No, I'm pretty sure I'm thinking about it because my brain is always on. It's on in my sleep, it's on when I'm awake, it's on no matter what. I'm always it's very hard to focus because we're thinking of all the times that we had bad moments. We are thinking, like, when we're driving, we're thinking about everything wrong that I said that day. When we're alone, we're thinking, man, what is everything that I did wrong that needs to be fixed? And especially because we're talking with probably psychiatrists or we're taking some sort of way to cope with our symptoms, it becomes a cycle of redundancy or like a cycle of irony, or I don't know what the right term is, but it just becomes a cycle of, we believe this is true, we're being told that it's not true or that we're overthinking it, we're at some point proven right, yet we are still the problem. And because we have all these moments of being hurt, we are frustrated because we can't make anything right. And it feels like the world is against us. And it feels like the world does not care about us. And this can be really bad. And there is, I believe, a statistic about the number of people with like neurodivergency or like something when it comes to certain acts that are more final than others. And a lot of it is because we can get very lost in our head, and we can get lost and not know who to turn to, because every person that we turn to is shutting us out. Or what often happens is that when they come to us, when they want to talk, we're not ready to talk, because we need to have a lot of time to prepare when we're having a serious discussion, because we need to be in the right mindset, we need to be focused, and we understand that having this conversation in the wrong moment is probably not going to work in our favor, because we're probably going to say something that's going to cause an argument and things are just going to go crazy. And we don't want that. So we probably are like, let's not talk about it right now. But oftentimes, because we are so random, when we want to talk is not usually convenient of the other person. They might be watching a show. They might be going to bed. And we're thinking about, oh, I should talk to this person at midnight. Because we're like, now I'm ready. I've been thinking about this conversation the entire day. Now I know what to say. Now I'm ready to talk about it. And more often than not, is probably the wrong time. And imagine feeling all of this, experiencing all of this, going through all of this, and then being told what you are experiencing is not a disability. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Your disorder isn't real. I've been told by so many people that ADHD is not that big of a deal. Oh, ADHD is livable. ADHD is not the same as other disabilities. They're not as bad as the other disabilities. First of all, if you're someone who's saying that, please understand that every single person with a neurodivergent disorder is looking at you and saying, wow, I wonder if they think that about my disorder. When you say that, when you say that ADHD is not that big of a deal to live with, you can deal with ADHD. The person with Tourette's, the person with autism, the person with all the disorders that you are validating are thinking, man, this person probably also thinks that I'm faking it too. Because that's always what people turn to, is this person doesn't have the disorder, they're faking it, they're just seeking attention, like yada yada yada. And the most common thing that they go after is people who self-diagnose, because they're like, you have not been diagnosed by a professional, so your disorder is not valid. And I'm here to say it. Self-diagnosis is valid. And the reason why is because it costs $2,000 minimum to get a full diagnosis. First of all, you have to have history and proof that you have had some sort of intervention. You have had an intervention of life. You have been needing accommodations, oftentimes accommodations that can only be given if we have proof of our disorder. It's kind of like when you're at an entry-level job and they say you need 5 years of experience working in this industry, in the entry-level job, and be like, we can't hire you because you need more experience. That's the same thing. It is like the equivalent of being like that to someone when you're saying, oh, you need like documented proof that you are experiencing this disorder, and the person who is responsible for diagnosing you is like, I need proof that you have accommodations. I need proof of your IEPs, your this and that. Because I will tell you exactly what the diagnosis process is. Now, it might not be the same as somebody else. Like, I was lucky because growing up, I was with a pediatrician that specialized in ADHD. And a lot of the times, that is the case. Like, a lot of the times, pediatricians are most likely to be the ones that are specialized in ADHD and stuff like that. The problem is, there are not a lot of doctors and not a lot of people that are specialized to deal with people with ADHD in adulthood. And you age out of the system when you're you can, in some cases, get some exceptions, but oftentimes you age out of the system. If they're not a family doctor, you might not be able to see that practice anymore. And there are oftentimes insurance that says no, because you're not under the age of 18 anymore. So we're not going to cover you if you're with a pediatrician because you're not under 18. Like, the amount of things that are against us receiving the care that we need, oftentimes our only solution is self-diagnosis. And on top of that, you need to know that you have a disorder before you go to a psychiatrist or therapist. Like, okay, oftentimes what will happen is that you are going to therapy, you're talking to a therapist, they're going to be like, go to a psychiatrist, they can diagnose you. But people don't understand that a psychiatrist can only diagnose you to a certain extent. Getting the full diagnosis is a lot. Because, first of all, you have to be living with the disorder for years with provable evidence. Number two, you probably have to have some type of proven intervention, like IEPs, like special education, like medication. Like, you have to say that you have been going to things that have been preventing that disorder or is treating the symptom. On top of that, you have to have someone who is able to speak about your behavior and basically speak on your behalf. And they have to be able to tell the psychiatrist or whoever is officially diagnosing you everything that they have experienced in your life. So oftentimes it has to be either your elementary school teacher or something like that, a teacher that you've had for a long time that has witnessed your behavior and has witnessed what you've experienced. And on top of that, it has to be someone who is willing and able to do this without having extreme bias, which is very difficult. And if you have someone who is not a good parent, not a good teacher, if you're someone who does not have parents and is like in like a foster situation, or doesn't have like a stable home, or doesn't have like someone who can really speak about you, a lot of times you can feel like you don't have anyone to turn to. And people might point at people that are able to kind of say something, but they might not be good enough, because they do have to have a lot, like they have to be able to give you a full, detailed thing. And it's very personal and vulnerable to approach someone and be like, hey, can you do a psych eval on me? Like, that's basically what you're asking for. I mean, there are politer ways to say it, but that's what it is. And you have to really trust that this person is going to have your best interest, and they're actually going to do it, and they're going to do it with full intention to help you. That is a lot to ask of someone who is not neurodivergent and for years has been turned away, slammed the door in their face, and being told that they are not disabled enough. On top of that, more often than not, what will happen is that you will get diagnosed by a pediatrician, or you will get diagnosed by a family doctor who recognizes symptoms early on. And they might diagnose you with a disorder that they know. But the thing is, not all pediatricians know every disorder, which means that they might not think of a disorder. They might think something is like ADHD or Tourette's or whatever they've most experienced. They might think that, and recommend and put you on the first action to intervention when it comes to someone with ADHD is medication. The problem is ADHD medication works very differently if someone is not ADHD. Like, if someone does not have ADHD medication works very differently on them. And on top of that, ADHD medication works very differently for each ADHD person, because our brains are very different. We're not the same brain. That means that more often than not, what happens is we are put on the wrong medication. We are either put on a medication that is not complementary to our symptoms, is not what we need, or is the complete opposite of what we need, or makes things 10 times worse. And we don't understand that it's the medication, because what we know is our behavior is better. So whatever we're doing is working, and we don't really think, oh, it's the medication. Like part of ADHD is regulating the brain, which means that our hunger control can be very different. We can feel either very hungry, or we can feel not hungry at all. And whatever we're feeling, it amplifies it. So imagine, because we're messing with the brain and we're turning off switches, we might turn off our switch for understanding that we are full and we don't need more food. We are good. So our brain is thinking, oh my God, we have no food. We have not eaten in years. We need food. Because our brain is like, what is happening? We're not getting the nutritions that we need. Because it's being basically barricaded and shut off from the rest of our body so that we don't make rash decisions. So what happens is we think that we're hungry. We're not really hungry, but we're still eating because we feel hungry. Because we're always taught, if you're hungry, eat, right? And so we have a lot of weight issues, or our metabolism might be somewhat complementary, But sometimes it's not a blessing, it's a curse, because that means we can't gain weight. So a lot of the times people with like neurodivergency or like ADHD or like that type of thing might either overeat or they might undereat because they're overcompensating, because they don't know what is enough food for them. So they will either eat until they're hungry, or they will understand, oh, well, I'm just hungry because of my medication. I'm not going to eat. And believe me, as someone who has been on a bunch of medications, I have gone hours without eating because I don't feel hungry. And to the point where we're probably skipping meals. Like, I mean, we're probably not eating whenever most people eat, because we're going to eat when we feel hungry. And on top of that, when we feel hungry, we're going to assume that it's our medication first. So we either overcompensate and eat too much, or we undercompensate and eat too little. Both of which can either cause weight imbalances, or it can cause other things to happen as well. Because obviously, if we're either overcompensating or undercompensating, a lot of the times that can form what people know as an eating disorder. Because our medication is basically designed to give us an eating disorder. Now, it might not be the same thing, but oftentimes that can be an origin of eating disorders. Like, medication is one of the causes to eating disorders because we don't know when to eat. Our brain is being turned off to saying we're not hungry, or our brain is being turned off, or our brain is being shut off so they think that we're hungry. So either way, we're either binge eating or we are not eating enough and we are under eating. So that can cause a whole bunch of different problems. Systems are shut down and tons of things. And on top of that, because we are someone with ADHD, because we're neurodivergent, because we're taking medication, we need more protein. We need more protein than the average person because our brain is being used so often. We need more energy. We need more protein. We need more things to keep us in check, because when we don't get those things, our ADHD symptoms can be worse because we're hungry. So, a lot of the cases, we're either overcompensating or undercompensating in some kind of manner. Like, we literally cannot win. And then there's the part of socializing. Now, some people have this issue, some people don't. I don't know. This is where I'm not sure how much of it is ADHD, how much of it's general anxiety disorder, how much of it is autism. And I don't know if, like, they kind of cause each other. But I can't really explain it to people because they don't really understand whenever I explain this. But I have had trouble making friends. And it has been my entire life. Nothing happened to cause it. Although I do remember some instances where it was easier. Like kindergarten, I had lots of friends. Like first grade, like my entire like elementary school, I had a lot of friends. And then like we moved on to the next thing and things like separated. But I will say, it's hard to describe. But in certain circumstances, I will have what I call an invisible wall, where I can want to do something so badly, and my brain will tell me no. I have experienced this on more than one occasions, on and off medication. And I don't know if it's something that can really be regulated, because it's like, my brain, my body, everything is stopping me from doing something. I think usually it's probably to protect my body and protect myself, and being like, we don't know what this situation is going to look like. It's probably going to be bad, so we need to get out of here. And we're like, no, I want to say hi to this person. There are so many instances in my life where I've wanted to get someone's phone number, where I've wanted to keep a connection, where I've wanted to text somebody, when I wanted to do a lot of things, let's just say that. And my body and brain has told me no. And what does that result in? It obviously results in not many friends. And it's difficult to explain. But I do think that it is my body probably protecting myself. Because in every instance, it's usually, we don't know this person, we're not interacting. Or it's like, you fucked up something, people hate you. It's over. And I don't know how to explain this. But it really does put you into a very lonely mindset. And I believe that there is a reason why a lot of neurodivergent people are turning to alternative options, and that alternative options is always dangerous. Sometimes it takes the form of drugs, sometimes it takes the form of drinking, sometimes it takes the form of having AI, sometimes it takes the form of doing something very unhealthy. Gaming can be something, because basically we are so hurt, so lost, so lonely, and believe that like the people that had our backs no longer have our backs, or believe that we are alone in a certain situation. So we turn to other coping mechanisms. I mean, if you call 988 right now, if you dial 988, the hotline that we are supposed to turn to, you will probably be told we are looking for to make sure you don't hurt yourself and that you have a place to cope, because 988 does not have, people have the misconception about what 988 is, and I had the misconception of what 988 is. Like, we were told that 988 is a suicide hotline, and that we like to use it. But 988 are not professionals. They're volunteers who are hired to talk, and they have very small windows, and their job is to, one, deal with your situation as quickly as possible, and two, make sure that you don't off yourself. So a lot of the times, we are told kind of maybe the wrong thing at the wrong time. And I've experienced this personally, where the result was cope with yourself, get into a good mindset, and then, or go to the hospital. There was a loop where I was literally actually, I have an experience. I was disconnected from 988. And, you know, it was like the third time that I reached out to 988. I usually don't. So I've reached out to 988 on, I think, like 3 different occasions, all separated from each other, but usually when I'm like very lost inside my head. So I'll dial 988, and this was a recent moment, actually, and I had just gone through something personal, was dealing with a lot, and very isolated. And I got into a really bad mindset, so I was like, okay, before I make this worse, let me dial 988. And I do that. And I'm like, this is the lowest that I've ever talked to with 988. Like, to the point where I'm answering yes to questions that I had never, ever answered yes to before. And their response was, we can send a team out there. And I'm like, I don't want, I'm asking, like, am I gonna need, like I can't afford it. Like, I don't have any money right now. I can't afford, I can't afford like, I mean, they're telling me that it's probably being covered, but I'm like emphasizing, I can't have medical bills. And I'm thinking, like, maybe at some point they're gonna start recommending me alternative options, because usually what they'll do is they will like connect you to therapists or some sort of psychologist or something like that. But the thing is, it's very important. 988 is not able to give you a referral to any doctor, and just because your referral does not mean that you bump up in anybody's schedule. It's crazy because 988, like, it's crazy because you can have a referral that is like almost like an urgent matter, and you'll still be asked, oh, you gotta wait like 6 months to deal with it. And you're thinking, this is a pretty serious issue, but I'm being told, not right now. And there are resources that they do give, but those resources are very questionable. And it's very concerning that people still to this day will recommend those sources. And those resources are things like BetterHelp or like an ADHD app. Because I have actually used those services. Not BetterHelp, but something very similar to it. And my experience was very disappointing. But either way, the point is, in this moment, I was really low, and they just hung up. They didn't link me to like any therapy links. They repeatedly said, as either hospital or you're screwed. And they repeated that like 3 times. Even like I was trying to get them to just talk about anything else, and the dude just hung up. They were like, oh, that's all we can say. I'm like, can we like do something else? Or can we like talk? Like, I even responded like, okay, like, no, we literally just disconnected. And I find that crazy. Because here's the thing, what they don't tell you is 988 is not obligated to make sure that you don't. 988 is not obligated to give you any resources or any help at all. 988's job is to, number one, make sure that you don't do the final deed, and to get you to put off your thoughts. And they have very limited resources. They don't have enough callers. Oftentimes, it's very limited callers, so they have to move on to the next person because they're always getting calls and requests to be talked to. So they're incentivized basically to finish the call as soon as possible. Now, the crazy part is I have seen the differences between 988. The first time I did it, I had people that checked in on me. And this is before I didn't choose any of like the serious options. And I had callbacks of people checking in and seeing how I was doing. Since I reached my lowest point and chose serious options, I have not received a single callback. Not one. No one has checked in on me. No one has talked to me. And it's so crazy to me that when I chose a more serious option, my problem was taken care of in the least serious way. Now, I understand with 988, you don't know who you're going to get. You cannot get someone else you were talking to. If you get disconnected, you cannot speak to the person that you were prior. So it's always going to be a different experience. But the fact is, this hotline that we are told to go to didn't take my request seriously. And 988 is designed basically so that you vent whatever you say. They cannot give you therapy. They cannot diagnose you. They just turn you to something else. They either find you coping mechanisms or they turn you to somebody else that can. And that's the only thing that they will do, and then they will send you on your way. Their goal is to get you to disconnect as soon as possible. Their goal is not to call any emergency numbers. First of all, they don't know where you live anyways, unless you provide it. Sometimes they will ask like for detailed information, like where you live and stuff like that. I think it's usually if you choose like the more serious options, they will ask for further details. So just in case. But I just find that crazy. And the thing is, we don't necessarily want to call 911 because we don't necessarily have an emergency. And 911 is a very serious thing. And, like, we're not really supposed to call it. We're told we're not supposed to call it unless it's urgent. And a lot of the times, neurodivergent people will take that very literally, and they will not call 911 unless it's literally going to lead to death. Also because if we do call 911 and an ambulance shows up, that thing is like $2,000 a ride, and that will be more expensive than whatever we're dealing with. And I've seen this time and time again, where I've explained this to people, where out-of-pocket therapy is hundreds and thousands of dollars. Those inpatient hospitals, like, you know, like those hospitals that are meant to like make sure that you're okay and like everything, $2,000 a day at minimum. So basically, you either get help and go into debt, spend your entire salary on getting help, or you find help in a different area. It's the same thing of, oh, you need to eat more healthy. All the healthy options are far more expensive than the fast food option. They are more expensive, and they don't give you as much food as the fast food options for the same dollar amount. Not only that, but it can happen to where people with certain ethnicities are not taken as seriously, or they're discriminated against, or they're downplayed, their feelings are downplayed, like, oh, it's just this, oh, it's just that. And it's not taken seriously. And I find that to be very, like, you're not willing to diagnose, you're not willing to help me, you're not willing to do anything, and yet I am told that my disability is not valid unless I get diagnosed. But the person who's supposed to diagnose me doesn't. And also there are households in which parents will refuse to get their kid diagnosed. And some schools do some sort of like intervention test. Usually it's like 3rd grade is when you're tested. 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade. That's when you're tested to see if you have things, if they haven't already caught it already. Usually like in preschool, like they will catch something, but that's like, you have to think about it this way. The people that are caught when they're like 3 or 4 are like the most extreme cases, because people notice it. They don't notice that someone who's acting up is actually ADHD. They probably chalk it up to, oh, this is a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old and they're just crazy. And sometimes, like, you can be told that you're overthinking it, like, it's not what you think it is, like, even though I can read that, like, that's probably, like, an ADHD thing, like, I can't diagnose, but that sounds like a whole lot like an ADHD episode. And what they're told to do instead is turn to admin, go to the principal's office, go to this, to have isolated moments. And like that's like the opposite of what they need. Like usually if there is an episode, usually if there is something happening that is like in their feelings, it means that it's not that they need to be isolated, they actually need to be more socialized probably. They just don't know, they just don't understand how to socialize, especially if they're a young age. They haven't learned that on and off switch yet, and they will at some point, because at some point they will do something that is good enough to where they will seek alternative means. They will try to do something to get out of trouble, and they might overcompensate, they might undercompensate. But I find it very crazy that people will not only say that the ADHD is not a real disability, they will also say, oh, but you have to make sure that you are living to the standards of normal people, of able-bodied people, and able-bodied mindsets. And there are people with disorders, with disabilities, that will carry on that rhetoric. Because they're going to be like, oh, like, my ADHD was manageable. My ADHD wasn't that bad. You probably don't understand that some of the things that you experienced was ADHD. Or what happens is they will say that, and then later in life, surprise, they have ADHD, or they have something else, or something, or they we are incentivized not to take care of ourselves. That's the society that we live in. We are incentivized not to take care of ourselves, because if we look to take care of ourselves, it costs thousands of dollars. We might have insurance, but we're gonna have to pay regardless, and those copays are not cheap. And people who are in like poor neighborhoods might not have a lot of options. People are spoiled if they live in like California or New York, where there's hospitals on every corner. Because the truth is, there are doctor and nurse shortages all over. To the point where, when you are in an emergency situation, your choice is go to the ER or urgent care and spend a lot of money, or find cheaper options. And let me tell you, many people will choose the cheaper option out. Why go to a doctor who is going to cost thousands of dollars when you're just going to have problems anyways? When even if you do go to that doctor, even if you do get that diagnosis, people are still not going to take you seriously because it's just ADHD. Because they don't see that what you're going through is a disability. If you're not able to do the same thing that an able-bodied person is able to do, then you are disabled. And the thing is, we are discouraged from using that label. Because if we say that we're disabled, we're saying that we're not as good as you. We're causing damage to ourselves. And a lot of people will not disclose their disability, because people will discriminate against them when it comes to the workforce. People get fired. People get and people lose friendships on the fact that people don't take ADHD seriously. Now, there's a difference between, hey, buddy, you need to watch it because, this, you might have ADHD, but you're taking it way too far. There's a difference between that and, just simply downplaying everything that an ADHD person does because you don't see it as a disability, because you don't see it as serious enough. When what you don't see is that person with ADHD is struggling on the inside because they are constantly told that they can't get help, they don't need help, and that their situation is not as bad as the other person. So they're constantly rejected, constantly turned away, and so they go to the options that do welcome them. And you know what those options are? The people with the worst interest that are not there for them. They turn to dating apps, desperate to find someone that's going to listen to them. They turn to drugs, because finally those drugs are going to solve the problems that medication can't, and maybe it'll be for cheaper than what the more often than not what ends up happening is that someone can't get an Adderall they can't get an Adderall prescription, or they can't get enough. They have to it's a regulated drug, so they turn to someone who can get them Adderall faster, and that person is like, I don't have Adderall, but I have this instead. And then it's too late. Because the thing is, people with ADHD are like a lot more likely to get addicted. Because their brain is trying to find something to cope with, and now they have found their solution. And it doesn't cost them debt, it costs them their life. Because they weren't able to get the help that they needed, and they weren't treated as important as somebody else. Now, I'm not saying that people with like autism or like all of the people with neurodivergent disorders, with invisible disabilities, have this problem, because they don't get diagnosed with Tourette's until they are 23, because they don't get diagnosed with autism until they're 23. And usually by the time they are 23, it is too late. And that is like only if they have had certain situations. And not every classroom supports special needs. Not every school has special education. Not every school is equipped to handle that many people with special education. And on top of that, we have legislation, like people in government that believe that the systems that are there to support us are not as important. The first thing that they look to turn to when they are cutting budgets is mental health. Because mental health is not as important as medical health, even though that they are the exact same thing. Because someone with a mental health problem is probably going to at some point need like real intervention, and those resources are not available for them because they don't have insurance, because they don't have a job, and they're already drowning because of medication bills that they have to pay because their copay is higher than, or their insurance doesn't cover it, or they don't have insurance, so they're paying for medication out of pocket, or they're not paying for it. There are so many factors, and like the system is built not to help you, but to destroy you, because you are not suffering enough to get help. And that in between is very dangerous, because you're not low enough to get actual government aid and support, and you're not high enough to have the ability to go get help yourself. And on top of that, you probably downplay how serious your disorder is because of the fact everyone around you does the same thing. Because when everyone tells you that you're overreacting, that your disability isn't real, that you are fine, that you're like, we're taught that we have an impulse control. We are taught that we overthink things, right? So when we're dealing with medical help and medical situations where, no, it is serious, we're going to think, oh, well, it's probably not as serious as I think, because that's probably my ADHD. But what they don't understand is your brain is telling you, I need help. It doesn't matter if it's your ADHD, I still need help. But people are likely not going to follow up on that because they're going to assume that they're just overthinking it. And then by the time that they find something to deal with it, or like even when they are ready to get help or do understand that they need help, they can't afford it. Because if they try to get help, they will go into debt and poverty. They will be on the streets. Because they just don't have enough money to cover those bills. And people hide behind the idea of, I care about every human life is alive, every human life matters. But then they don't help you. And I find it's always frustrating. Because it's like, I'm not bad enough to where you will care about me, but I am bad enough to where you won't be my friend. Got it. So I'm damned if I do, and I'm damned. Like, it's to the point where even if you get an official diagnosis saying that you do have, in fact, ADHD, it won't matter because people don't take you seriously anyways with it. And people will just use it against you and be like, oh, this is like an ADHD moment. Oh, it was you just having a moment. And this video is like an hour long, and I did not mean for it to do so, but man. Whew. Look, I'll apologize for it being an hour and 6 minutes, but I hope that I said something that really resonated with you. And I also want to say this that's now on my head as well. If you're someone that says that you are someone who is tolerant of people with disabilities, but turn away people when they are dealing with the bad side of their disability, with their bad side of autism, with their bad side of ADHD, and always like downplaying like how they behave, and don't like do the research yourself as to see just how much ADHD like if you're someone who is like pro, like you're like say like you support people with disabilities, but then turn to your friends and downplays someone's disability, or downplays like doesn't take people seriously, or uses a disability against them, you're not the ally you think you are. If you're always like questioning whether or not this person's disability is real, if you are always being like, oh, this person's like overreacting or over exaggerating or not, you're not the ally that you think you are. And you are not helping in the way that you think you are. Like, yes, of course, someone with a neurodivergent disorder is going to need intervention. Yes, they are going to need that help. But they need to be taken seriously, because they may actually mean the things that they're saying, but they don't want to cause problems. But they're trying to ask you for help, and you are turning your back away from them. Like they're trying to tell you what is the problem. They're trying to tell you that there is a problem. They might not be saying it in the right words, and those politically correct words, or they might not be using the correct language. And it's so frustrating when people will hone in on the language that we use, but not listen to what we were actually saying. The amount of times I've experienced that on social media, in every interaction that I've dealt with, is so frustrating. Because I am always open and honest about what I have. I've always told people, I always tell people, look, I have ADHD, I have this, okay? It goes in one ear, out the other ear. And those are the people that tell you that they're your allies and your friends, and that they care about you, and they will tell you all of that. And at the same time, as soon as you have one misstep, they will turn your back away from you, and they will not care about you. And I think the most hurtful thing is the amount of times where I have thought that I could trust someone, or thought that we were close enough for me to get vulnerable and express my frustrations, and then the other shoe drops. It is a magic wand. It is a magic wand that as soon as I open up to someone about the things that I've been dealing with, the things, whenever I get personal with someone, the door slams, or something happens, and it's clockwork. And they are the people that you see as your best friends. They are the people that pose as allies, as support systems, and they will turn your back. They will be the first ones to turn their back on you. And then they wonder. Like, there's so many times where I'm always very careful about everything that I say and everything that I do. And to the point where all you usually have to do with me is just tell me. And people will not tell you the truth. People will say that they're fine with the things that you're doing, and then switch a button and turn on a dime, and now you're the villain. Now everything that you've ever done is wrong. Like, they have been telling you, oh, you're doing fine, you're great, we love you, you're beautiful, like blah, 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 blah. But they will be the first, they will turn on you and then tell you everything, including the things that they've said were okay. They will turn on you and switch it and be like, oh, no, everything that you have ever done is wrong. Oh, we actually had a problem with that. Then why did you tell me that it was okay? Why did you validate what I was doing if you thought that it was wrong? Why didn't you tell me that you had a problem? You never told me that you had a problem. You told me that I was doing everything right and that you loved me and that you cared for me and that you were there. Do you know how frustrating and hurtful it is to deal with that every 6 months? Every time. Every single time. Every single time. Every single time. And look, there are people that won't cut you off, but they will constantly do that. And you don't want to let them go because they are people that are there for you. And you're afraid that if you cut them off, you will truly be left with no one. So yes, people with ADHD, people with neurodivergent disorders are more likely to stay with their abusers, are more likely to stay with the people that don't care about them and that will use them and abuse them and still have no regard for their health or safety, because maybe that person does give them something. They do alleviate something. Maybe they pay their bills, they help them, they're there for them. Do you want to know why people turn to drug dealers? People turn to bad people. People turn to their do you know why that they are likely to defend the person that did everything awful to them? It's because that was the only person in their entire life that was actually there for them. Yeah, they didn't have their good intentions. They wanted to hurt them. They did. It doesn't matter, because they were the only ones in their entire life that actually stayed with them and heard them out. And the people that said that they cared about them, the people that said that they were there for them, turned to their backs and slammed the door. And now, yes, there are definitely people out there that will help you, that will fight for you. But finding those people, it's nearly impossible. Because people don't think that ADHD is serious enough to do something about it. And the people that say that they care, the people that say everything, they'll hate you. But they won't care about your, like, they will understand that that you have ADHD. They will understand all these aspects, and still they won't do anything to help you. It's just really sad. It feels hopeless. And I understand the people who feel that way, because I have felt that way. And I am resilient and I am strong and I am here. But the fact that you will take the most optimistic person, the child that has the brightest eyes, and you will show them in every single way why they're wrong. And to the point where that same person who said they would never do drugs, never drink, never do anything, will finally get to a breaking point and try it anyways. And once they do that, once they turn that direction, once they go down that level, they can never get out. Because the thing with people with ADHD and all these neurodivergent disorders is that once they are hooked on a drug or addiction, it is very, 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 they're the most likely to relapse because of their impulse, because their lack, it becomes a cycle. And just because they're not addicted to drugs does not mean they don't have this problem. Because when all else fails, when everything fails at some point, they would go back to the thing that made them feel good. Whether it be drugs, whether it be gaming, whether it be anything, even if it was the most unhealthy thing that they could ever do. And they will turn to that thing because of the fact it's the only thing in their life that makes them feel good. And it's either that or the permanent solution that will solve their problem. And the unfortunate side of things is oftentimes the things that they turn to are the things that will get them there anyways. Like, there are people out there that will tell you, I know that drinking is bad. I know that smoking is bad. That's what I hope for. Because, yeah, they don't necessarily want to do the final deed. But if they're told that it's going to get them there quicker, some people will willingly go that direction because they're not doing the wrong thing necessarily. So they'll intentionally go that direction because you're telling me I can cut half my life if I do this thing that makes my feelings go away. For some people, that sounds like a dream come true. For some people, that sounds like their golden ticket and the perfect match for their problems. Because all of their problems will go away and their life will be cut in half. And they won't have to be on this horrible planet, in this horrible world any longer. And they can have mercy on their life. Now, who knows if afterlife is real? Who knows? But if it is, if it isn't, a lot of times what people will tell you is that if you go down those directions, if you go down those ways, you're never gonna know. Like, the Bible tells you, like, if you go out, like, hell is never knowing the paradise you could have had and never having that validation that it's real. So even if it was real, you won't experience it. If you I'm going to stop this here. But what I will leave you off with is, first of all, please stop saying that ADHD is not as bad as other disorders or disabilities. You have no idea what you're talking about. And just because you can't see ADHD being a disability because it doesn't inconvenience you, does not mean that it is something that is livable with. And if you're someone with ADHD or a neurodivergent disorder that has felt heard by this video, please feel free to share your experiences that you're comfortable with down below. And I want to do this video because I understand that some people out there are looking for answers that they are not as crazy as people are telling them why. And I will say this: you're not crazy. It might be part of your ADHD, but you are valid in your feelings, whatever you feel. And how you feel is real, even with ADHD. So don't ever think that your thoughts and feelings aren't real or are like a make-believe thing because you have ADHD. Your brain, your body is trying to tell you something. You need to listen to it, and you need to understand it, because no one is going to help you. Or at least that's what you need to think. Because you need to help yourself. The biggest thing that has kept me here, present, is because when every option failed, I took the solution into my own hands. I found a coping mechanism, I did something, and I got myself out. I might have went to the mental gymnastics. Like, I don't necessarily want to go into the details of what keeps me grounded, because it is kind of a dark thought, and I don't want to kind of put it out there. It's very not necessarily the most healthy thing, but it is a thought that does kind of work. It hurts. It's like, it's bad, but it's something. Anyways, I hope that what I've said you take into every consideration. And if this did resonate with you, or if you know someone that would resonate with this, with hearing this, with watching this, please share it with them. And until then, I will see you next time. And please do comment if you, in any of this, have things to elaborate on, agree or disagree, or just understand that there are people who are here and they care about you. They might not be in your life, you might not have met them, but there are people who do care about your well-being. And I'm not gonna say dial 988, because I know that that is not always an actual solution. But what I can point you to, it's crazy, because all of the resources they tell you to go to are shit. BetterHelp does not guarantee that they have a license. BetterHelp has a lot of scams. Those types of platforms do not vet their psychiatrists or people, so you might not be paired with someone. And the truth is that what they tell you, what they do, is not always backed up by insurance, because they are not seen as an actual practice. It really depends on the licenses they have, but even then, sometimes if you go through BetterHelp, insurance might not see it as valid proof and stuff like that. So, I think the best place to go to, not AI, I mean, if I will say this, if AI keeps you here and keeps you managed, yeah, use it. But don't rely on it. And I understand what it's like not knowing if you can reach out and be vulnerable with the people that you care about, because you think that if you overshare, they're just going to shut you out and turn you away. And I can't. I know that by telling you to reach out to them anyways, it's not going to make you feel any better. It's just going to make you not want to do it, or doubt yourself, or like have like a million thoughts in your head as to why you shouldn't and stuff like that. I would say for me, the thing that works the best for me, if you are in kind of in the same area of me where you don't know if you have a resource to turn to, get a camera, phone, whatever, and just talk out loud in a video and then listen to it back, because sometimes that is the most therapeutic thing. Like, don't post it anywhere, don't put it anywhere, just speak out loud. I would say also write things down, but I understand writing things down can feel a little bit scary sometimes, because like people might read it, people might not get the right understanding. I have had moments where I've written things down and showed it to people, and they did not take it the way that they were supposed to. So I have had that happen as well. But even just talking to yourself can be one of the biggest things that makes you sane. Even though it's a symptom of something that people see you as crazy for. Would you look at that? Something that actually helps is something that is seen as crazy. Anyways, I hope this did help, but please understand that you're important. People do care about you. People will notice when you're gone. I know it doesn't feel like that. Let's just make the promise to ourselves that we will keep trying, even if it feels like everything is against us, because sometimes it does feel that way. Anyways, again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.